Hi Stampers, I'm Meg from Loven Stamps, and this is Monday, Maker Mornings with Meg. So we are back after a weekend. I hope you guys had a great one. And over the weekend, I had a marathon card session. I had to make 100 Easter cards for our church to send out, so they'll get written out in the next couple of weeks and then sent out. But I could have started early and planned ahead and gotten them all done over time, but you know, sometimes that doesn't really happen. So hey, Cindy and Cheryl and Trish. So I was left with a weekend to make 100 cards, which sounds daunting, but is actually not that difficult when you have some tips and tricks for making duplicatable cards. So I'm going to share my card design with you guys this morning. Hey, Tanya. And I'm going to talk a little bit about color choices and the stamp set that I used, which is his Love, which is a great stamp for lots of different occasions for in your church. And so we're going to use this cross, and we're going to use the Rejoice and Be Glad, which also are terrific Easter. I also use a little bit from Gift of Hope because it has an Easter message in it. And I also used Butterfly Brilliance, which is our focus for this month and was terrific for envelopes. So, morning guys. Hey, Melinda and Brenda and Cheryl and Sue and Sharon. All right. So are you guys ready to get stamping? The card that I made over the weekend, I actually used retired paper for, but we're gonna go ahead and shift our focus to Hydrangea Hill and use some hydrangea paper this morning. So, all right, let's get started. I'm gonna flip you guys down here. Let's see, get us centered. There we go. All right, and let me first bring in our hydrangea paper, just to kind of remind you guys about this one. So there are a variety of papers in here. Some of them have sort of a mostly white background, some of them have these colored backgrounds, and then the back side of each of these is a more neutral pattern. And I wanted to go ahead and use with our stamp set, these are pretty ornate images here, the detailed sketch drawing. So I wanted to go ahead and use a paper with a lot of color background because I wanted my front layer to stand out really nicely from the background. So we're gonna stamp on a layer here, and if I use these white layers, it would get lost a little bit. So I'm gonna go with one of these colored layers, which I have pulled out already here. And so from that, I picked my colors, and I wanted a light color for my cross and a dark or stronger color for my greeting to go across there. So one thing that will really help if you are trying to make a lot of a card in a hurry is either use a punch for your greeting so that you can just punch out the pieces you need. But I really wanted to have the stitched detail around our central image because you're going to see our card designs really simple. So I pulled in my stitched oval shape from the Stitch Shape dies, and my hint for you, if you're finding that you use this die set a lot and you often make card in larger volumes, go ahead and get 2 sets of it. So I know that sounds a little crazy, but I actually own 2 sets of this die because I so often use it, and it's a really universal set that I can use for lots of things. So then I can run these through and do half as many die cuts as I would otherwise. All right, so let's bring one of our ovals in here, and I'm gonna start with my blue, balmy blue, and go ahead and do our main image, okay? Now, it's really tricky to layer images that need a lot of detail available, like having a greeting, okay? So you don't want your 2 image colors to compete with each other. You want one to fade into the background as just like a subtle hint or a subtle reminder, and you want one to be strong. And Gorgeous Grape is a nice strong color that really can hold its own against the background there, Okay. Now, sometimes you find you're starting to get a spot in the middle of your ink pad that's not quite as strong for inking. You can re-ink, which is a great thing about Stampin' Up! Ink pads, or you can kind of work around the edge of your pad and you'll know that that's happening. I think you can see this on the video. There's just a little lighter color here in the middle of my Balmy Blue ink pad. So it's starting to lose a little ink in the center just because I've used that area so much. So. All right, so it'll be a candidate for re-inking soon. Okay, I'm gonna set those aside and I'm gonna come back and bring in our card base. So I used Highland Heather for this so that it doesn't compete so much with the pretty florals. The Gorgeous Grape would be the other match, but it's pretty dark and I liked the idea of the lighter springy color a little bit more. So we're gonna layer our sheet on here, and the size for this is perfect for using your designer series paper. It's 4 inches wide by 5 1/4 inches tall, and that allows us to get 6 cards out of a sheet of designer series paper. Okay, so then it mats really nicely. Now, if you are trying to stretch this a little bit more to have more sheets, you could do a 3 by 4 inch piece of DSP. Then you'd need to maybe size this down a little bit, but you can kind of play with this to see how many pieces you need to get out. And then all we're gonna do is layer our greeting on top there with some Stampin' Dimensionals like that. Put them on, and then we have our finished greeting card, okay? So we're not done yet, but there's our first step. So this is pretty close to what I did for my cards this weekend. Here's the other card that I made. So same kind of color design. You'll see the lighter color in the background and the nice bright, easily read greeting right on top of it, and then that designer series paper in the background. So let's look at another color from the Hydrangea Suite. That is this paper right here, and we've used this before for some different hydrangea things in our videos. And I'm gonna go ahead and get this card set up here and layer our designer series paper on it. And then we're gonna talk a little bit, there's my sneak peek. We're gonna talk a little bit about the color selection for this card. So I can't remember which card it was recently, but I talked about Petal Pink and Blushing Bride and how they seem like they're the same color, but they're really quite different. And I'm gonna give you a couple examples here of how they really work differently in a card. So for our first one, I'm gonna go ahead and stamp the cross in Blushing Bride, and then the darker overlay with the words in Rococo Rose. And both of these you can see are very much present in this designer series paper. So Blushing Bride is really about the same color as Rococo Rose, just a tint of it, so a lot lighter. Or Rococo Rose is a darker shade of Blushing Bride. And those two come out looking like this, which is very pretty, and you can still see the difference in the colors. But when I put this on here, I feel like it's becoming camouflaged. It's like it's hiding in the wallpaper. It just doesn't jump out very much because these two colors are the same and everything back here is all the same, okay? So when I'm picking colors for something like this, I really like to bring in something different that still coordinates. So here, Petal Pink and Rococo Rose both clearly go nicely with this paper. They're both in it. You can see where those colors pull each other out. And when I stamp the cross in Petal Pink and the background in Rococo Rose, the contrast between those two really helps both things to be more visible, and it helps them to show up in the background. So here's kind of the difference. Same color fading into the background, a little bit of contrast brings out the most of what we're trying to stamp. So, okay, so we would go ahead and pop this one on here like so, and then I'd have this as my Easter card, okay? All right, and you still have, a month, I guess, left for making your Easter card, so you have some time. For the inside of our cards, I'm going to bring in the Gift of Hope stamp set because it has this perfect Easter greeting that says, "He is not here, for he has risen." And so I'm gonna pop this onto a block. And I did just really simple stamping on the inside of my card. So I'm gonna go ahead and use the Gorgeous Grape because it was my darker color. And my Gorgeous Grape is really well inked. So I'm just gonna double check my stamp to make sure that I'm not gonna get sort of over stamping from over inking. And there we go. So there's our image. Always just be a little cautious. You don't want to get overexcited and swipe your hand across there to check if it's dry. It probably is, but just give it a little time just to make sure. And I'm gonna go ahead and pop that into our card, okay? So there we have our front. And then of course you could stamp something on the back or give it another image. And then we need to stamp our envelopes. So let's grab some envelopes, and I have a set of 3 here because I wanna talk a little bit about repetitive stamping. And the stamp set I'm gonna use for that is Butterfly Brilliance, which, sorry about that screech. I just realized I didn't grab a block for. I'm proud of myself. I cleaned up after my marathon stamping session. Also, I like to store things in my cases, especially if I have extra images and things that are pertinent to the stamp set. A lot of times I'll leave those in there. Okay. And turn these back over. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and set this on here. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about our envelopes. So this is the flap. A lot of times when I do my envelopes, I like to put an image down here at the corner. The post office doesn't care too much about this spot. If I stamp all the way across the bottom, they're gonna put a sticker on my envelope so that they can get their little postage slash stuff on there. If I stick to the corner, usually they don't worry about it too much. But what I'm gonna do is I am going to use my Gorgeous Grape ink pad and my butterflies. Now, let's see, do I have a thing here? I'm gonna go ahead and stamp my 3 envelopes, and I'm gonna do this inked once. Because remember, if we're making 100 cards or 100 envelopes, we want them to go pretty quickly. And I think I need a couple more envelopes so I can show you my stamp lesson here. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and ink this up. Really only the top, this side. The top corner up here is what's going to be on my envelope. So I'm gonna go ahead and stamp here. And then I'm gonna show you what not to do. Okay, so here's my first one. So I stamped once, which has beautiful butterflies there. Then I'm gonna bring in my next envelope and I'm gonna stamp again. And I'm gonna go like this and stamp a little more. Now, this is gonna be bad. It'll be terrible. Oh, it's not as terrible as it could have been. But do you see this line right here? This is the corner of my image from before. So what happens is when I stamp this time, it pulls ink from just this portion of the stamp, and then this part out here doesn't get ink pulled off it at the same rate. So when I stamp it again, I end up with a box left from the corner of my first envelope, okay? So that usually makes me a little bit sad. So I'm gonna show you how you can multiple stamp and not have that happen. So there's we'll get rid of that one. Okay, so I'm gonna ink up again. Okay, our Gorgeous Grape on our Butterfly Brilliance. And Butterfly Brilliance is my feature this month. So if you haven't seen those projects, there are a couple posted from last week. And then end of this week, I'll get some more posted for you. Okay, so first one, I'm gonna make sure I put the most of my stamp on, and then I'm gonna work off in my sequential stamping. So there's 1, here's 2, so I have a little less on there, okay? And then here's 3, and I'm gonna do just the corner. So each time I'm using less of my stamp, and there you can see kind of those 3 versions, and I don't have this little problem here at any point. So if you were doing 100 cards with envelopes, you'd only have to ink your stamp 30 times, 33 times, and you wouldn't have to ink it 100 times to do this. And any of these would be good. And then you could either squish your greeting or squish your address over here, or if you're using address labels from the printer, then that's gonna work fine, okay? So that gives you a quick way to make your coordinating envelopes for your cards. And then let's talk a little bit about what if you wanna make this card, but you want to put a little bit more into it to make it just a little bit more visually designed, kind of the way we do our cards usually, with a little bit more background and a little bit more connection and so forth. So there are lots of ways that you could do this. So a simple one would be to bring in a sprig punch. And I'm gonna go ahead and pull this over here. Oh, I'm glad you guys like the envelope tip. So I have 2 coordinating cardstock colors, Mossy Meadow and Old Olive. And the supplies for this card are all linked in the description here. I didn't put the extras with the sprig punch and so forth in the video description, but you can find them online when you're at the shopping link otherwise. So I'm gonna go ahead and punch out a couple of sprigs from these. And of course, the nice thing about the sprig punch is that it's really quick, so you can incorporate lots of them. And then these nicely layer. They get a little lost if you just use one. Having more than one tends to make them show up just a little bit more. And these could be tucked under here just for a little bit extra embellishment, a little extra interest. You could also, though, turn to the dies from the Hydrangea stamp set. So the Hydrangea, what's it called? Hydrangea Havens, which is this guy here. The coordinating dies for this are good. And here's the thing though, there's no leaf all by itself. Well, there's these little guys, but they don't have a layer. And these guys have a stem. So I'm gonna show you how to take these two and turn them into just the leaves we want, if we decided we want leaves there instead of the sprigs. And I'm just looking for something here in my drawer. Yeah, we'll do that. Okay, next step. Yeah, hint, ribbon's coming. Okay, so I'm gonna take these and go ahead and die cut them. I'm gonna do the outline from my darker mossy meadow, and on this one, I'm gonna die cut just the leaf part, I don't need the flower, from my old olive cardstock, okay? And through the magic of television, I have those two pieces here ready to go, all right? Now, they have this odd little like stem piece at the top, which clearly we need to get rid of. So, morning guys. Hello, Margaret in Rhode Island. I love hearing where everybody's from. It's so much fun to think that we're like gathering, right? We're hanging out together from all over the country. All right, and then I'm gonna take my multi-purpose liquid adhesive, and I think I have one that's a little fuller. Here we go. I always tap it down if it's not been vertically stored. If you tap the glue down, it'll always be available to you, like right at the tip. So you don't have to like squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and then have it splurge out everywhere, so. All right. And last one, I'm just gonna kind of do the center of each of these. If you've heard me talk about multi-purpose liquid glue before, you know that I always say, what do I always say? If you can see it, it's enough. So you don't need a ton on there. And I also always say that it doesn't grab instantly. You need to give it a second. So I'm just gonna set this down on there for a second. Get this out of the way. All right, so we're gonna come back in here with our paper snips. That's good enough. And I am going to trim. So we could, let's get our sprigs out of the way. We could use this as one big leaf kind of up here. Or kind of down here. But honestly, what I think I want to do is use the little bits of the leaves. So I'm going to go ahead and split them off and clip them just along those lines. So now we have 3 fabulous leaves, okay, that are layered and detailed and match our designer series paper and the images in it. So now I can come back and pop these here. Let's see, maybe something like that behind our greeting so that we have an extra layer there kind of behind what we're working on. All right, now I feel like they look a little bit kind of stuck on there. So I'm going to add one more embellishment. We could also come back with some of our sprigs if we want. Nah, I think we're good. But I'm gonna add one extra embellishment here to kind of tie these things together, and that is gonna be our ribbon. There is a gorgeous grape ribbon that's not available for order right now, but our Seaside Spray metallic ribbon is a really nice complement for this paper too. So I have our card here that I actually haven't assembled, and I'm going to go ahead and let's figure out how much ribbon we want on here. What if we go back and forth like a few times? What if we do something like that? Zigzag, zigzag, zig. Yeah, let's do that. That's kind of fun, right? I mean, we are rejoicing. It's a big thing to rejoice, big occasion. So I'm gonna grab my mini Stampin' Dimensionals because they have a really wide border, and our really wide border is really nice for ribbon tricks like this. So I'm gonna pop this. I already have some stuff on there, so I guess I'll do it across here. And I'm going to take our backings off and use this to stick my cards down, or stick my pieces down. So over the weekend, I also did card making with a group of Boy Scouts, and there were about 10 Boy Scouts, and they made cards for a local senior center, assisted living facility, just thinking spring. And the boys did a really nice job with their cards, but I showed them how to use dimensionals to stick things down, because they had some vellum leaves in their little card kits. And like one of the boys was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. So I got a big kick out of that. He really thought that the dimensionals were pretty awesome. So, all right, so now I'm gonna look on the front side as I put my ribbon across here. And go ahead and, let's see, I want it to end with the ends on two opposite sides. So I'm just gonna go back and forth. And as I'm going, I'm just pressing the ribbon into our dimensionals. And let's see, this last one, oh, it is kind of stuck down. I'm gonna cut at a diagonal. There we go. All right, and then I'm gonna come back on the back. There's a lot of competition here for the dimensionals and the spacing and having them stick to our card. So I'm gonna bring in just a little bit more dimensional edge, dimensional to make sure that our greeting is stuck down. All right, and I am kind of a fan of how that looks. So now let's bring in our die cut leaves again and add these to our card here. Now, one of the things I can do is tuck them. Can you see, let me see if I can pick it up, that I've kind of gotten it tucked right into the ribbon down here. So it really stands out from the background a little bit more. So I'm gonna pop that on there like that. Now that, I think I really like as a much dressier version of the card that we started with. So let's go ahead and pop these on. And again, pop this in here. And then I'm going to use my multi-purpose liquid adhesive again and just pop a little bit of glue on the back of the bottom of each of these so that they're gonna stay where we want them. So this guy popped right on top here. And then I think our bigger leaf is gonna go down here towards the bottom, and our next bigger leaf is going to tuck in here on the ribbon. Okay, and again, you have to give those a second to dry. Trish says zigzag, zigzag, zig. Yes. So, and I also like it. It's kind of balanced because it ends on opposite sides here, rather than having both ends zigzag, zig, zigzag, zigzag, zig. Anyway, you get the idea. All right. So there is kind of our couple of different versions of this card. Again, the biggest thing to remember is, oh yeah, and here's her non super embellished version. Big thing to remember is that you want to have nice contrast between your two ink colors on here. When I had those two ink colors that were too close together, it just made everything camouflaged and fade into the background. So you want contrast between these two ink colors, yellow and blue, the peach and the darker pink, the blue and the purple. Those make those images and the greeting really stand out apart from each other. And then if you want to embellish, you can go kind of the punch direction with the sprigs, or add some ribbon, add some dies, and that Hydrangea Haven bundle is a great one. So there are, if you wanted to do a card like this and not have it be, you know, an Easter card, the Rejoice and Be Glad, you could also do a similar card and put the hydrangea here with a greeting over the top of it. You'd have the same effect. You would want your background image to be really light, like the balmy blue, and you would want your greeting over the top, and any of these greetings would be great. You Make Me Smile is one of my favorites. You would want to be really strong in ink over the top. The trick you would have with this is that these fonts aren't very strong. So these fonts here, this Rejoice, is really nice and pronounced, which makes it easy to see on a busy background. So you just want to play with that and your colors to make sure you could get that to work the way you want. So, all right. So that is our Monday, everybody. Hey, Kate. Oh, I'm glad you guys like these. Yeah, I think, you know, whether you're doing the simple version of this card or the much more embellished version of this card, there are lots of good possibilities, and I think some good lessons in any of those cards, especially thinking about those colors and how they complement each other or how they contrast, which makes them show a little bit more. So. All right, well, that is Monday. Tomorrow we'll be back for another Maker Morning with Meg video. And tomorrow we are going to go back to our embossing paste. I had so much fun with that last week that I wanted to show you a simpler way to use embossing paste. So re-inker is not necessary for tomorrow's video. But it'll give you a chance to really see how you can put that embossing paste to work for you in making some other custom mask designs. So. Thanks, Tanya. I'm glad you like my top. So it's kind of fun to pull things out of your closet you haven't worn for a while. All right. Well, you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you tomorrow. Happy stamping. Oh, I do have one extra thing. Don't forget, today is the 8th, so only 2 more days to register your paper pumpkin if you haven't done that. So don't forget, the 10th is Paper Pumpkin Day. You have to be registered by the 10th or have your credit card current on your subscription to go ahead and get that. So I don't want anybody to miss out on their masks this month. All right, happy stamping, guys. Bye-bye.